Wow, guys, what an episode! Welcome back to Analytical Strategy, breaking down episode 6, and boy oh boy was it a crazy one. So much strategy to unpack on the Brains tribe and an absolutely wild vote out and tribal council. So there's not too much to talk about on the Brawn tribe this week, mainly just Gerald letting Flick and Kez know about Simon finding an idol, which I'm sure will play out in more episodes to come. Also, the decision to select Joey as part of them winning another reward challenge, so this pick was pretty interesting to me, with Joey being one of the bigger guys in the Brains tribe, so feeding him alone was surprising. But they also mainly chose him as they thought he would spill the most information. So to me, it was pretty evident that George would have spilt basically all of the information of the Brains tribe to the Bronze tribe, going into this reward challenge saying he didn't have blood on his hands, and now he knows the villains in his tribe and he knows where everyone lies, and really sounding super annoyed at his tribe quite openly. So I think he would have been an obvious choice if they were going for the information route. But it does turn out Joey struggles to keep it under wraps, and he did give up a lot of information, which honestly I don't even think is that bad of a move. I mean, he was pretty open about not liking George, which I think could work to his disadvantage, with the other tribe now knowing that George is a number that they can use. But also, if he gets on the side with the likes of Simon and co at tribe swaps, they can now have a common enemy. It didn't really divulge his core 4 or 6 from anything that we saw, which I think is much more important. He gave up information the tribe was probably already aware of from what we saw at that reward, so I think in the grand scheme of things it is all pretty minor overall. But now let's get down to business. Yes, the Brains tribe, which really dominated this episode. So firstly, George. For most of this episode, he did behave pretty poorly and had a lot of sour grapes from the previous tribal council. He came in super hot at Rachel specifically, after tribal as things did not go his way, stating what happened last night does not build cohesion. However, I'm sure if plans went his way, he would have been very happy, even though there would have been other castaways now in the exact same position that he's in. Now, getting upset when things don't go your way, but happy when they do, it's almost like he's a politician or something. But also, why he just came in hot at Rachel, and Haley got off scot-free for being in the exact same position as Rachel was also very interesting. So I presume there were some dynamics there between George and Rachel that we didn't see within the edit. The Brains then obviously lost reward, and also lost immunity, and left way out of a challenge with a puzzle, and that is a huge mistake and one they should never make again in the future. She's been so clutch in puzzles, so I have no idea why they did that, but nonetheless they lost and they were going to tribal. Now this is where the episode really got interesting, and there is quite a little bit to unpack here. So firstly, the Joey's core 6 were all in on George, and the 4 misfits were on the outs. George and Kara then went idol hunting and were successful. So firstly, why the core 6 didn't trail him all afternoon before tribal, or at the very least go and look for the idol themselves rather than prancing around in the water all afternoon, was absolutely baffling. They were a little bit too arrogant for my liking and just assumed that George wouldn't be able to find the idol, which we have seen time and time again on Survivor. The people that put in the time to find idols in the end find them. It's bizarre this still happens in most seasons. So it was looking like the Misfits might have had a chance, but that was until Laura picked up on some physical tells that they did in fact find something, and honestly it was extremely well picked up on and quite impressive. Just merely basing that on their movements alone, she seemed pretty bang on the money at the exact right time. So due to this, Joey was actually able to reel in Way to join their numbers, so they would have enough to split the vote. So with Way on their side, rather than being a 6 versus 4, they could do a 4 versus 3 versus 3 between Kara and George. So even if an idol was played on George, they could re-vote against Kara and she would be the one to go home. Now, one absolutely huge mistake this Majority Alliance made after pulling Way in was making Way vote for George instead of voting for Kara. This was honestly a really terrible decision that could have been extremely costly for their alliance. Now, there's no guarantee that Way is going to flip from the Misfits. So in the case that she doesn't flip and votes Georgia instead of George, it would have actually been 3 votes George, 3 votes Kara, and 4 votes Georgia. And Georgia would have been the one to go home. However, if she and 2 other people voted for Kara, and 4 of the original majority voted for George, then even if she stayed with the Misfits, then it would have ended up being a 4 versus 2, and would have been basically the exact same as a 6 versus 2, with the idol needing to be played correctly for the Misfits to survive. So they were extremely lucky that Way did actually flip to their side. And also lucky Way likely didn't realise this numbers breakdown prior to voting. I actually think arguably the best move for Joey's 6 was to pull Wei over, and then actually put the 6 votes on Wei herself, and for her to have gone home. It wouldn't have affected their 6, they in no way would have seen it coming, and it would have been completely out of left field. But they are super determined and fixated on getting George out of this game before a swap, which is also very understandable given he's likely to jump ship to the Brawn tribe straight away. Wei, however, ended up telling the Misfits that she's likely going to flip, which was a move that let her conscience get the better of her. I think it is probably the right move for her to potentially jump ship, but letting them know about it was not the best decision. It allowed for Baden to come up with the plan of a hot potato idol, which I think was pretty fun and quite inventive. But if the majority had the numbers to split the vote, it really wouldn't have changed their votes in the end. But I do love the idea in theory, and from a television perspective it was definitely worth a shot. Now, one absolutely baller move either Baden or George could have done, if they expected Kara to play it for herself, is once it was passed to them in the hot potato rounds, they could have just kept it for themselves. Man, that would have been absolutely brutal but genius at the same time. However, it turns out Kara is just way too good of a person for that to happen. So Kara in the end gets the idol back, and she does play it for George, in one of the most selfless acts in Survivor history. Kara really seems like an absolutely beautiful human being. She really does seem like such a gem, and almost too kind of a person to be a backstabber in Survivor, which can really make it difficult for you to go far and get to the end, but man, what an amazing human moment in giving George the idol in the hope that he could live out more of his dream, and George really being so thankful back to her for doing so. So the votes end up being a tie, and on the revote, Kara is the one voted out of the tribe. However, dun dun dun, we have the old classic Australian Survivor twist that she has not been voted out of the game, just voted out of her tribe, and she has gone to go join the Brawn tribe. Now, I could not be happier for Kara, and I really don't think it could have happened to a better person in the game. But honestly, man, I absolutely despise these types of twists, I'm sorry. I really don't like them at all. Especially revealing them after votes have been cast and idols have ultimately been wasted in the game. If it was revealed before people voted, Kara could have at least kept her idol, George could have gone to the other tribe, and although I still would have hated it, it wouldn't have been as bad. But I really don't like these concepts from production, but I honestly did kind of expect it to happen, if not in this episode then shortly after, as Australian Survivor really love the old "you're voted out of the game." Lol jokes, you're still in the game. George is literally going to weep tears of joy when he sees Kara at the first challenge in the next episode, so that at least should be a special moment. But it also means a tribe swap is not going to happen in the next episode, so that'll likely be a couple of episodes away before happening. George has also been immune at all 3 tribals he's attended so far this season, so if he can keep up that momentum for the rest of the season, he'll be cruising. It was a wild episode nonetheless, and we have a few days to recover before it's back on again this Sunday night Australian time. Again, thank you all for listening, I hope you're enjoying this season, and remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more recaps coming soon. This is Analytical Strategy signing out, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.